Back in March, I went on a vacation to 4 different national parks and 1 national historic monument. So some of them were in Texas, and then we also went into New Mexico. So we flew into El Paso, and then we went to White Sands Dunes National Park, Guadalupe National Park, Carlsbad Caverns National Park, and then we went down to Fort Davis, Texas, and there is a National Historic Monument there. We also went to some other things, and then to Big Bend. So I have some video clips from that, and I'm going to show them to you now. Hope you enjoy. White Sands Dunes National Park. It was really impressive to see just kind of the drastic change in vegetation and land cover. I of course had to do kind of the stereotypical thing and create a sand angel. I didn't get video of that, but I do have a photo of it, which I included on my Instagram. It was just impressive to see that much gypsum sand just for miles and miles and miles. And that it just was created in the middle of essentially nowhere, it seemed like. It was really, really beautiful. Obviously really difficult hiking in the sand itself, but it's pretty. Next we went to Guadalupe Mountain National Park. This is an old, essentially exposed reef. So back in the day, this was a giant coral reef. We went for a 1-point-something mile hike out and then hiked back in. We didn't get all the way to the top of the mountain at this one. It was kind of just like the lowlands, but we went up to like a spring area, and then we didn't see any fun creatures. We didn't get to see any snakes or tarantulas, which I was a little disappointed with, though the people who I was with, I'm sure, were very excited about that because they are not into that sort of experience. Even if though it was March, it was fairly warm out, which I was okay with because I was kind of used to that, but other people were not necessarily. It wasn't too bad of a hike. There was definitely points where we were like, are we on a trail? Did we miss our spot? Just because it felt like you could easily get lost there in terms of where you were going. But it was really pretty to get up there, and you can just see for miles. And I don't know, I find deserts to be very beautiful. I don't know, I find all nature to be beautiful, but it was a very pretty hike. And we went to Carlsbad Caverns. I knew it was like a big cave, but actually seeing the entrance was impressive. There were not bats flying around on the outside. Those are actually a type of swallow that lives there. Though there are a lot of bats, and you can go and watch them exit the cave at night. We were not there at night. The night we would have been in the area to do that, we didn't realize that that was an option. So we did not make it to see the bats leaving the cave. But just the entrance to it is just much larger than I would have expected. And it's the biggest cave entrance that I've seen. It is not the biggest cave in the country. I believe that is Mammoth. But all the structures inside are very beautiful. I tried to capture some of it, but given cave lighting, things don't necessarily turn out very well yourself, but I highly recommend going and seeing it. If you have bad knees, you can just take an elevator down, but if you have, if your knees are fine and things like that, You can actually walk in like I showed you. But you can also, again, take an elevator if needed, which is what my dad did because his knees are not the best. But just look at all, it's just so pretty. It was just so pretty. And we went to the McDonald Observatory, which has very large telescopes. It's near Fort Davis. It's up on a hill. It has some of the clearest skies. And that is why you were able to see so well. So I did a good video of this, but we did go to a star tour thing that night too. So what we did was we went there, we kind of did the tour during the day, which personally was not actually all that impressive. Like the museum hasn't been updated in quite a while. There was like the newer telescope, which was a little bit interesting, but it was only so in my opinion. But then we booked a star tour. So that you come back just before dark. And then like they give you a presentation and you get to see all the stars. It's just, you can see like everything. The night we were there, unfortunately, was a full moon. So we didn't get to see the stars quite as well because the moon was just washing everything out. But they had this massive laser pointer that they're able to point out the different stars in the sky, the different constellations, which, you know, is kind of the fear when you're doing a star, like someone's pointing things out, it's hard to tell what you're looking at. But with that laser pointer, they were easily able to connect everything. And then they had like 4 or 5 like large, not the big giant ones that I showed you, but still like you have to keep them in one place type telescopes that you were able to look at stuff. And then people who had like the hobby ones, but like the expensive hobby ones that are movable, and they were able to point out all sorts of different things, as well as they pointed out that like they pulled up the moon on one of the telescopes so you could look at it. I think there was like 9 different ones. Well worth your time if you're going there, do that. There's also a historic monument that I didn't show, which is like an old outpost from the army back in the day. I didn't get any footage there, but it was interesting. It was a little chilly that morning because that's the thing with the desert, is it's cold in the morning and hot at night. And I don't do as well with the cold. So I found it less enjoyable, but I think that was partially due to the temperature. But it was still interesting. We then went to Big Bend, which was just impressive. I mean, just like you're in the middle of the desert and then you get towards like where the main visitor center is, and you're just like driving up into the mountains. So it's actually an old like volcanic, it was old volcanoes essentially is what it was. And it is just beautiful. So when you're down on the desert floor, it's like really hot, but then you drive up into the mountains and it is just gorgeous. Scenic views the entire way, really impressive. So then we saw, you know, this is more like the down desert floor area. So this was when we were driving down towards the Rio, is where you could see this sort of stuff. There's like a little scenic overlook area. We went down to the Rio and we saw a roadrunner who came right up to everyone and was just like not really all that scared. And he was just very entertaining. Right next to the trail. We did a hike called the Lost Mines Trail the next day, where that first rock structure you saw is where we climbed to the top of. It was gorgeous. It was difficult, but it was like nice switchbacks and a fairly well-maintained trail. But it was just gorgeous. I just wanted to videotape everything, but it doesn't do it justice, in my opinion. So visit Big Bend if you've got a chance. Then the next day we went down to the West Rio, and I, of course, had to actually get in the water because that is just me. So I got in the Rio and I touched it. It was a hike. You have to hike up pretty far to get back down. That day it was fairly hot, but once you get to the water, it was beautiful. So that was my trip, my spring break trip, essentially, because it was in the middle of March, and it was a lot of fun. So we got lots of steps on that trip, obviously. So on Wednesday, we managed to get 19,000 steps in. That was the White Sands Dunes National Park and then Guadalupe. We did those in the same day. We got 12,000 steps when we went to Carlsbad Caverns, and then on Friday was the day that we drove. No, Friday was Fort Davis and McDonald Observatory, and we got 11,000 steps that day. And then we were down in Big Bend on Saturday and Sunday, and we got 15,000 steps the first day, which is when we went down to the Rio on the east side of the Rio. So if you're at the Bend of Texas, you're on the east side, which is closer to Houston-ish. And then the next day is the day that we did the Lost Mines hike, and then we also hiked down into the west side of the Rio. And so that was the 23,000 steps. So lots of steps every day, which I was very excited and happy about. I'm glad that we were able to do that. I'm glad that the people I were with were able to keep up, and we were able to actually do hiking instead of just driving around and looking at things. I mean, it's nice to do that, but it's also nice to actually get out there and hike. Personal opinion, I like nature, so, you know. We also did some of the other kind of less physical things. They do have a paleontology exhibit because there have been many fossils found in Big Bend National Park. So they had a whole exhibit on that, on all the sorts of stuff in the history and the paleontology of the area. We did a drive on the Fort Davis Day. So because we had been planning on going, to the I keep wanting to say aquarium. It's not an aquarium. To go see the telescopes and things. But it was not that we did the tour and it wasn't super impressive, the day tour, and then we had lots of time to kill. And so there's this scenic drive. And so we did that, and we were able to see some javelinas and some other wildlife and stuff, which was great. And it was, kind of a recovery-ish day then for people who needed that. Because the day before, or the 2 days before, we had been doing, Carlsbad Caverns, and then the day before was a hike and White Sands Dunes. So it had a middle day recovery day in the middle of it, which I think was good for some people. There was lots of good food. It was very enjoyable. It was just great. It was a great trip. I hope you enjoyed and kind of got to see some of that nature. If you ever get the chance, I highly recommend going to any or all of them. While it is a drive to do the whole loop, if you do Guadalupe and Carlsbad Caverns, those are very close together. So that would be kind of feasible. The rest are a bit of a drive, but if you're in the area, I mean, when else are you going to be out there? Personal. That's why we tried to do as many as we could hit as possible. But thanks for watching. Like this video if you liked it. Dislike it if you didn't. Any comments would be wonderful and welcome. what is your favorite national park that you think I should go to, because I'm trying to hit as many as possible. If you would like to subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps the channel out, you know, same with the whole comments and likings and all of that sort of stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you in the next one.